There are several secret weapons when it comes to preaching. Two of them are storytelling and humor. And when you put those two together, it is a powerful combination. My name is Lane. This is Preaching Donkey. Today we're going to watch an example of what it looks like to tell a story that is funny in order to make a point. It's going to be awesome, so stick around for that. I want to point you towards something that is my gift to you. If you go to preachingdonkey.com/21days or click on this link right up here, you can grab my free 21-day guide to creating killer sermons. It's just a free 3-week, 3-step process that will take you through how to write and deliver a compelling message. Whether you've been preaching for a little bit or a long time, there's something in there for you, and that's my free gift to you. As far back as I can remember, the preaching that had the biggest impact on me had one thing in common, and that is the preacher could make me laugh. And as I've dug into this as a communications coach and as a preaching coach and as a preacher myself, what I've discovered is that there's actually a lot behind that. If you can make someone laugh, if you as the preacher can make people in your audience laugh, if you can make them smile, then they're going to feel good. They're going to feel good about you. They're going to feel good about being there, and they're going to be more open to hearing the message. Now, this is somewhat controversial in some circles, as some people have the idea that preaching needs to be absent humor, that somehow it cheapens the process. I do not think this. I think that if you look at it in terms of how people connect and relate to information, humor is a massive tool that can lead people in the direction of life change, which is what we want. The way it does that is humor can put people at ease. Humor can make people relax. Think about when you laugh at something, genuinely laugh at something, how it just relieves a little bit of tension for the moment and makes you just feel like, I can be in this moment and just enjoy myself. If you as a preacher can produce that effect in your listeners, then you actually have in that moment their trust, their attention, which is huge and hard to come by. And in those moments, if you pivot to the point you're trying to make, you're much more likely to get it across. Now, do you have to use humor with every point? No, it doesn't always work. Do you have to be a comedian to be funny in a sermon? No, you don't need to be a comedian, and you don't need to do joke telling, okay? This is one of the things I talk about a lot, and I mention this in my book, Become a Preaching Ninja. I have a whole section on humor, and one of the things I say is that nobody wants a comedian stand-in that's like, hey, I got a joke for you, I got a joke for you, I got a joke for you. Nobody wants that. The best way to be funny, the best way to inject humor in a message is to combine it with storytelling. It's a powerful, powerful kind of 1-2 punch, because when you tell a story, people lean in and they want to hear more, okay? In fact, when I'm preaching, if I lose the crowd and I see people like this and they're on their phones and I've lost them, all I have to say is, there once was a man. And all of a sudden, here's what I see. Huh? Who was he? What did he do, right? I mean, every eye looks up, every head looks up, because nobody wants to miss a story. So if you're able to tell a story and wrap it up in humor, you have the attention of your people. And then if you want to insert a point, guess what? At that point, you've earned the trust, you have likability, you have attention, and you can pivot to a very powerful point. Now, I want to show you an example of someone who does this. We're going to look at him telling a story. We're going to watch it. I'm going to make some observations as we go along. And in this, we're going to learn how we can do this ourselves. This is a guy, his name's David. He's a pastor at a church in California called Westgate Church. If you want to look him up, go for it. I don't know him personally, but I really liked this video, and we're going to watch it together.
We're fighting, and they were just to fight. And my daughter, my sweet daughter, turns and looks out the window and says, wow, it's really windy out there. And my son says, it's not really that windy. And it was totally windy. He's just being contrarian. So I'm like, and then JL's like, no, it is windy. Look, you can see the trees moving around. You can see the wind. And Justice is like, technically you don't see the wind. You only see the effects of the wind. And she's like, you know what I mean, it's windy. Stop being a jerk. And he's like, it's not my fault you make illogical statements. That'll serve him well in marriage.
Okay, a couple things I want to point out. One is he's just telling a story, okay? But you can hear the laughter, you can hear people connecting with this. And one of the things he's doing right now is he's letting people laugh. In comedy, one of the things that you don't want to do is what's called walking on your laughs, where you give a punchline where he says, that'll serve him well in marriage. He got a huge laugh. And so instead of moving along, he paused. And even just in the pausing, there's some humor in that. And even his facial expression, he's in there, whatever he's doing, all of that stuff is part of it. The other thing I want to mention about his delivery is that he has thought through, clearly, he's thought through this story very well. He doesn't have a lot of audible pauses where he stops and says, or. Every single thing that he says is intentional and deliberate. And when you're trying to tell a story and you want it to be funny and you want it to kind of be something that people respond to with genuine laughter, it has to pack a tight punch. The more filler and the more, oh yeah, and they were saying this, and then I can't remember what happened, you lose people, and it's not as funny and it's not as interesting of a story.
And then my daughter, my sweet daughter, is just like, bam! She just said, what's that for? And then they start, you did it, you did that, you know it right away. And I lost it.
Okay, so that's good. I mean, just his delivery, he's got a physical approach, right? He talks about the 1-2 punch. And then when he delivers this punchline, he pauses, he gives a little bit of time, and he's like, I lost it, okay? And there's such brilliance in that because he could have just said, and you wouldn't believe it, I mean, I just lost it, right? But instead, it's so deliberate with his delivery. It's just perfect. And again, the thing I want to stress here is that this isn't material in the sense that he's not a comedian who sat down and was like, okay, I gotta think of a bit. I gotta think of a comedy bit. This is just a real situation that happened with his kids where they were squabbling, and he's able to tell the story in a funny way.
Because I had enough. And so I turned around and I used my dad voice, and not my simmering dad voice, my full-throated, you will obey my authority dad voice. Stop it! Just stop it! Both of you! Stop talking! And at this point, you just start saying things you don't even mean. No one in this family is to talk to anyone else in this family about wind for the rest of our lives. Do you understand me? Be quiet. Quiet.
Okay, so love it that he just fully commits to the moment, right? He gets in it. He's quoting himself. It's self-deprecating, which people love. He's saying, hey, he didn't just say, I yelled at my kids, I went off. He's literally he builds up to the moment, right? I said things that I don't even know if they're they were just nonsensical things. And then he demonstrated for us. So you could actually visualize being one of his kids. It's still comical, right? It's still kind of funny. None of us in this family is to talk about wind ever again. That's pretty silly. So it's not like he's incriminating himself as this big monster, but it's self-deprecating enough to be funny, and it brings in people. So at this point, I'm just telling you, everybody in the room is watching this story, right? Very few people, if any, at this moment are on their phones thinking something else is more interesting. Because what's happening right now is funny and interesting, and people want to know what happens next, and they want to know that they don't want to miss out on a laugh. They don't want the whole room to roar in laughter and then have to look at their friends and say, what happened? What did he say? What was so funny, right? There's power in that. And for those of you who might be saying, oh, this is manipulative or this is absent the Holy Spirit's work, I don't agree with that at all. I think this is purely simply what it is to communicate using your whole person, your whole personality, bringing everything that you have. And so if you're even slightly funny in real life, if you're even remotely capable of making your friends laugh, and you don't bring that to the pulpit at some level, then I don't think you're fully bringing your full potential to the pulpit. I think that if you're not funny, then maybe it's just not something you should do. I think everybody should tell stories, but not all stories have to be funny. But I think if you have this in you and you show up in the pulpit and it's just serious from start to finish, I think you're missing out on a huge opportunity to capture and maintain people's attention in a way that almost nothing else can.
And I'm yelling, and I'm a loud guy, and I have done my job as a responsible parent. And I turn around, and there, in front of my white Honda Odyssey minivan, are 3 people who heard. And they're standing there like this. And one guy slowly raising his cell phone, for the police.
Yeah. The other thing I love about this is the pauses, right? Slowly holding his cell phone, for the police, right? You know where he's going. You know where it's going, but it's just he's walking you through it, and it's slow and it's deliberate and it's funny and it just works.
And, okay, yeah, it's sort of funny, but it's funny because you have done it, but I got caught, and I was like, oh no. And in the middle of this feeling came over.
Okay, so at this point, he's pivoting a little bit from just the totally funny story, where there's nothing serious about it, it's just a funny story, to he relates it to people because he's like, you're laughing because you've been there, you've done it. I'm the one who got caught, but we've all been there. And now in this next really minute or so is where he's going to take this funny and humorous story and begin to draw a spiritual application. There's still some humor in this, but where he's going is to drive the point home. Now I want you to imagine that you're in this crowd. You've just laughed. The people around you are laughing. And one of the things to remember is that watching this, I've been pausing it and stopping and talking, and it's sometimes things aren't as funny when you're not there. I think this is funny, even not being there. But imagine you're in the room, you got all these people laughing around you, you're laughing, you're looking at the person next to you, you're, oh, that's so funny. We've all been there. At this moment, you are locked in to this guy. And he has an opportunity to make a point that had he not been funny, had he not told this story, you wouldn't be as invested in what he's about to say.
Over me because I had been caught. And like 4 minutes earlier, I had been at church hearing a message about the Holy Spirit and kindness and goodness and peace and patience. Patience, that virtue you have when there are witnesses present. And it was a complete, not only what, but it raised up all sorts of questions. I was a guy who had just gotten out of church. I was a pastor, and there I am yelling at my kids in that white Honda Odyssey minivan. And the question began to boil up. Why are there so many instances when I do not live up to the ideals that I not only say I believe, but actually talk about? Why is there not more life change? Why is there so much hypocrisy?
Okay, so that's where that clip ends. But again, he goes through this whole story, and then his point is hypocrisy. I want you to think about this. What if this whole point about hypocrisy had been him saying, absent the story, like imagine he doesn't tell the story, there's nothing funny, and he just says, sometimes in my life, I realize that there are things that I teach that I don't live out. And it makes me wonder, why is there so much hypocrisy? Okay, that's a great point. But absent the story and absent the humor, what you don't have in that moment are two things: context and attention. Context. When you say, why is there so much hypocrisy? This is something that I wrestle with. In the context of the story, people go, yes, like when I yell at my kids, I feel like a hypocrite because I know I shouldn't do it. Or yes, when I yell at my spouse. Or yes, when I'm on the highway and I have road rage and I flip off the person next to me. Yes, these things are when I feel hypocritical. That's context. And the story and the humor provides the context. The other thing is attention. Attention meaning that in that moment when he makes that point, guess what he has? Eyeballs and ears. Because the story and the humor captured attention such that people are on the hook for the point. What's the point of all this? Why did you just spend 4 minutes telling a story? Oh, because of hypocrisy. It shows how easy it is to be a hypocrite and not have your life line up to what you teach. So again, as preachers, what we can draw from this is that working on your humor, working on your ability to tell really good stories and your ability to make people laugh genuinely in a way that fits your personality. And again, if you're totally not funny, it may not be the thing for you, but if you're even just a little bit funny or you appreciate humor, even if it's dry, those things can work when they're coming from your personality. They can work massively. Sometimes dry humor, sometimes slapstick and physical humor. Whatever kind of humor fits you can be incredibly powerful. So for your next sermon, think about where can you inject humor where right now you're just telling a point, you're just making a point. Could there be something funny that precedes that so that when you make the point, it hits home a little bit more? Is there a story that you could tell? Let me know in the comments how you use humor in your sermons. Right here, I've got a great playlist for you on the 7 steps to writing a sermon. Definitely check that out. Be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video.